Consider this video as your main way out of suffering. Anything you suffer in your life, whether it be mental, physical, anything around you, worldly obligations or expectations, trauma, mind patterns, anything you suffer, I'm going to show you here exactly what that is, where it comes from, and what it represents within yourself and the world. The most dangerous part of suffering is that you start to actually believe it's yourself that is suffering. Let me explain. Each time you suffer more in your life, you are enduring certain levels of ego, belief, and extending yourself out as the sufferer. But you are not the sufferer. The sufferer is the illusion itself. In fact, since you are a child, there was no one here suffering. If you think about it, there's just emotions being felt. There's feelings that are going through this embodiment. But then at a certain point, you start picking up more identity. You start locking into the identification with these labels, these ideas, these feelings, these emotions, the anger, resentment, suffering, lack, any trauma you have, and you hold on to that. And this creates a suffering that is actually linked with karma. There's a major distinction between generational karma and regular karma. Karma that you put out there from your own wrongdoing to another or yourself is your own suffering loop that you have to detach from and evolve beyond. That is a part of what I will explain in this video. This has to do with your own spirals, your own habits. Everything around you in your entire environment metaphysically are just particles there waiting for you as certain obstacles for you to overcome or fall beneath. These are all tests and parts of the program that you have to overcome. If you want to get out of that cycle, all you have to do is look up and look within. Understand your astrology chart, understand your psychic abilities, understand your chakras, understand your nervous system, understand your energy body, understand your trauma, how to get out of these things. You can contact me for a session to work on these things through the description of this video. This is how you're going to essentially allow a miracle to occur within you through the universe, not through an individual, but through a divine mirror. And then you're going to become that and subsequently remove this karmic boundary that binds you into the three-dimensional realm, because anything that binds you, anything that confines you is not in freedom. It's actually to keep you in that karmic loop, which the matrix benefits from, because then you keep being a servant, consumer, right? You keep projecting the problem onto another, and then you're stuck in the problem yourself, right? That's literally the definition of being unconscious. So what we have to do is get out of that unconscious state. What is the definition of being conscious? Self-aware. Right? You're not just projecting all the time. Like any word I've said in this video or any video is always about you getting past anything that keeps you from your highest awakening. Right? And if you need to do it in intervals over weeks or months, so be it. The universe is not mind. Better that than decades or other lives. Let's get you through this as smooth as possible. Let's not keep you delayed in distraction in the karma of the material realm. Everything around you is constantly testing you. It's always observing you. The matrix, individuals outside of you are not what they seem. Majority of them are not. So you have to understand these are just a different lens of perception. It could be of your subconscious. It could be from the simulation. It could be the matrix, which is very similar, basically the same thing. But these entities, they all operate at certain levels and they're here to pull you down into more density. Density is basically the parallel of karma. So you have to get out of the limited three-dimensional reality that keeps you in a karmic loop. That's that reincarnation cycle that humans have been caught up in for about 9,000 years. And that's looking at it linear. I don't always want to mention the years so much, but this is just to give you an idea of how much time has passed that you have been unconscious. But you're waking up now, right? It's just one consciousness repeating itself. But what's going to happen is you're going to go out of separation and you're going to go into oneness, union, harmony, embracing that truth within you. And you're going to leave these lower levels where karma, judgment, fear, and by the way, putting fear on another, putting judgment on another, it creates karma on yourself, because then you're going to have to go through that. So projections. Another explanation for karma I can go ahead and state here is when you project anything on another, if it's negative, tense, limiting, then you will have to face it in this life or the next. So do not throw out judgments. Always cleanse your energy, cleanse your perception, and do not project so much. Project reality as consciousness, not as the psychological ego, not as the psychological mind, because that ego mind is where the suffering and judgment is. A few practical ways for you to get out of any karmic loop you can be stuck in. First one would be financial lack, scarcity that you've picked up through family, right? This is something you can actually let go of through accepting the abundance of God within your life, because you have to understand the literal definition of infinity is infinite. It all exists. See, we actually downgrade infinity. What we have to do is upgrade infinity within our awareness, because infinity, it means everything literally exists. And you have to actually get past the concepts of that. Don't understand it conceptually, but actually understand it experientially more. And we can only get as close as possible to that understanding, but we can actually integrate that full recognition of what infinity is within us. You're an infinite being. Consciousness is infinite. It doesn't have a boundary. It's just this body seems to have boundaries, walls around it, right? But everything is temporary. And also, when you leave the body at night, where do you go? There's no walls. You're changing into a new scene of life. So what you have to do is recognize that's infinite there. There's abundance there with dreams. There's abundance in water, the ocean. Do you know how many oceans exist? Do you know inside of the earth, under the earth? Do you know what exists there? It's all infinite. It's time you start to understand how things really just keep going. Dimensions, planets, universes. It's not what they've shown you. And that's for a reason, because they want you stuck on the surface level, right? That's why the advanced civilizations under the earth, they don't want to come to the surface, and most of them vibrationally cannot. And ethereal beings that are above the earth or in the sky, this region, they have a hard time coming down to the physical realm because it's so dense here. A lot of that is that karma, the suffering. So surface level consciousness, materialism, superficial, get out of that, and you won't be stuck anymore in the suffering of the surface level false reality. For almost your entire life, you've been placed into a system that's taken your freedom. You see, they'll give you an elusive freedom and you think this is freedom, but actually freedom is from the sufferer, from the identity, from these layers of deception, right? That is all the concepts, that is all the ideas that you hold on to. The world puts them onto you as a point to induce suffering. That is the karma of humanity. That is also in effect when we don't have, most beings do not have their psychic abilities active. That is also the karma that humanity has faced from Atlantis. Then there's also karma that is occurring to the Middle East from what happened to Jesus. These are several examples for you. Now in America, the karma is a bit different because of what has occurred in this land specifically. It's very obvious what is happening through a lot of separation, a lot of vindictive behavior, a lot of duality, judgment, a lot of the matrix, right? That's the whole world, but each part has its own karma, and then humanity is linked into the awakening when you get out of that karmic cycle. So to get out of the wheel of karma, you have to start to be aware of your own karma and the differential in your generational karma. So once you become self-aware and you enhance your spirit, once you open your chakras, once you open your third eye, once you can sense energy more, you will start putting karma out there much less, because you'll know the effect it will have. You'll start to work more in wisdom and silence. That refinement, that discernment will allow for a very acute way to perform spiritually, not mentally. So you're living your life in a spiritual way now. And to experience, more than perform, experience your life through a cleansing. You're cleansing the karma of mankind. You're cleansing your generational karma you've taken on from your family. You've taken so much from the world that you have to cleanse out. But then at the same time, you also got lost in a lot of loops that the false ego created that was thrown at you. So you're also here overcoming those more inner karmic spirals. You recognize that through any negative traits that you may have, anything you may be holding on to that is like baggage, programs that repeat, anything you see in your dreams, maybe a certain grudge you may hold against someone that's still always repeating. You have to let these things go, because once you let it go, that's when you reach these higher levels where karma is not necessarily an effect, and it does not necessarily determine the appearance of your reality that is ever changing anyway. But to get out of suffering, to get out of karma, you start to understand, you start to realize and recognize what you actually are, which is not of the physical. You are aware of the physical, right? Karma is only from ignorance. The most dangerous thing of all is when ignorance and arrogance meet. This is the karma of man. I will make another video on this subject about the human experiment, But in this video, I can go ahead and touch on it a little bit. It is a human experiment that is going on, because karma, you're directly keeping yourself, lowering yourself to lessening yourself, learning lessons. Right? So what's going to happen is, until you recognize the duality and the true meaning and power within words, numbers, reading the energy of the universe, opening your channel, right? Until that becomes your vitality, your purpose, until you align with your creative purpose, with your source within, which is your link to reality, life itself. Unless you focus on that, then you're going to keep that spiral going. And that's the unconscious realm. That's the three-dimensional realm. And that is the human experiment, to see how long does it take them. There's a very righteous occurrence happening right now. Many beings across every universe are watching humans, are connected to it, because there is a certain awakening happening that's never happened before, where they have to overcome, we have to overcome all of these wrongdoings, all of the falsehoods that are out there. Each falsehood, each thing that the world tells you, that you see these false characters out there trying to put you in a system and put rules over you and make you follow their regulations and make you be limited, and all of these limitations that are put on you to hinder your awakening. It's about how soon are you ready to be liberated. That's all. Because once you get liberated from that system, then you're free from the karma, because you recognize these patterns. These patterns are all limitations. They all follow the same language, which is the unconscious realm, right? What is the definition of consciousness? All consciousness is being fully awake and present in the constant moment, never changing. It is always here. Wherever life is, wherever reality is perceived, there is consciousness, which means this must be your true self.